What's going on YouTube? Alien Scientist here. Back of me you'll see my bachelor's degree in physics, and on Google Hangout with me is my good friend Ken Griggs, who was a guest on my podcast several times, and he has a PhD in physics. And we're going to be doing a response video today. We're going to be doing a lot of videos in the future, in the near future here, but we're going to do a video today on this recent video put out by Secure Team 10 on Bob Lazar. And Bob Lazar, for those of you new to the community and just seeing this video, he's one of the most famous cases in ufology, and he's a physicist. Really got me interested in the whole ufology field back in the day when I first started researching UFOs, 15 years ago. So I got a lot of more research under my belt than guys like Secure Team 10, who somehow get millions of views and likes on these videos. And well, my stuff is censored for some reason. I put out a video on this mass shooting the other day, and I've gotten a tenth of the views that I've seen many of the other channels getting, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But I'm going to try to see if I can get some views on this, especially with the information that I have on Bob Lazar. And a lot of that's been compiled by me, my friend Danny, who was a guest on my last video, and one of my favorite researchers in the field, a guy named Michael Schratt. Michael Schratt literally puts every penny that he earns as a graphic artist into researching and flying out to these locations and interviewing witnesses and getting as much information as he can on black aircraft. And he's literally cataloged as many different types of top secret aircraft that are out there. He's more than anyone in the field of ufology, and he recently, I think, retired from ufology after a recent UFO conference that he attended, and he was just so fed up with all the New Agers and the people that have taken over that really are new to this movement and kind of just taking it on beliefs and not really doing good thorough investigation. They're not really in it for truth, as my channel is, and they like to call people like me shills because they can't prove us wrong with logic and science. So what I'm going to really do today is just not tell you what I think of Bob Lazar, but I'm really just going to show you some of the information that we've come up with in researching Bob Lazar's history that have made myself, reasons to doubt him and reasons to suspect that maybe he knew something or borrowed something that was more. We'll talk more about the in-depth physics and try to bring that into context of some physics that might actually work for anti-gravity. Yeah, we'll save that for the end. Basically, what they did here is let me just play a clip for you of our video here from Secure Team 10, so you all can get a glimpse of that.
Existence was being denied by the U.S. government. Now, as I said earlier, this man and his story is truly unbelievable, and you will have almost a clear line split right down the middle of those who believe him and those who say he's a liar or a hoaxer and he made it all up. Now, I personally believe that he is telling the truth, because when you watch his interviews and you study him and you look at him and you gauge the man. You gauge his overall intelligence, his way of speaking. He comes across as someone who is telling the truth. And I think all of us have that sort of sixth sense where we can look at someone and say, okay, this person is a charlatan.
There you go. There you have it. I mean, he sounds like he's telling the truth. So
right. And for 10,000 years, religions have sounded like they were telling the truth as well.
So what we have is a very, very well put together research paper. It's 49 pages, put together by Michael Schratt, who's an excellent UFO researcher, and he basically outlines all of Bob Lazar's entire history. Everything Bob Lazar ever claimed, he went and researched it in explicit detail, like the kind of detail that Agent Mulder would investigate a case in, not the kind of detail that a YouTuber just trying to get YouTube video views would and do, you know, because.
Right.
So for those of you who are really into ufology and the truth, I really encourage you to read this paper. I can't put it all together in a video and explain it all, but I'll go over some highlights. First off, he was asked about his professors at MIT, and in one of these interviews that Bob Lazar gave in a Q&A session at the end of it, and he said that one of his professors was Professor Duxler at Caltech. But Duxler never taught at Caltech. He taught at Pierce Junior College, which Stanton Friedman was able to get his record, Bob Lazar's education records, and prove that he did take some courses with a Professor Duxler at Pierce Junior College, which is not Caltech. So he lied about his professor in one of these interviews, which shows that he's probably lying about his degree, but then they went and wrote the universities. The universities don't have any records or PhD thesis or anything from him. He's not in any yearbooks. And I'm sure I could get some of my friends from MIT. I grew up in Boston and the surrounding suburbs, and I know a lot of people who went to MIT. I could get somebody to ask him some questions about him, you know, intricate knowledge about someone who went to MIT would know, but someone who didn't would get wrong.
I got MIT.
So anyways, we'd like to get Bob Lazar on for an interview and really get to ask him an intense questions and series of questions. And this would be Bob Lazar's really opportunity to prove himself legit with two physicists who really are into this stuff, want to believe, want to get real information, and I'm not afraid to call it as we see it when we find information that's not completely honest. It's like Bob Lazar's education records should be there. They're not. The government can only go so far to erase you. So if you can, even if they did all these things, there should be some way that, you know, Bob Lazar can come on and we'll find a way for him to vet himself, and we'll figure it out. But his W-2, which was his main thing, saying that he worked for the United States Department of Naval Intelligence. And what's interesting is that the Department of Naval Intelligence under that name actually hasn't existed since World War II. It's actually called, if you look it up, it's called the Office of Naval Intelligence. Okay? Office of Naval Intelligence. There's actually no such thing as the Department of Naval Intelligence. So that should tell you something right there. That obviously this guy who was an admitted self-employed photo processor easily could have faked this, and they proved that he stole some of these numbers from other people, like the OMB number. We proved that he stole it from this woman that was just taken off. He just photocopied it off of a photocopy machine and replaced some of the information like this. The United States Department of Naval Intelligence. It didn't exist in 1989 when his story broke, or in 85 when he said he worked there, you know. 89 this is from. So that was another interesting thing that we found. And there was reasons that I had lambasted Schratt, actually got interviewed on Jesse Ventura, and I was making response videos to Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory and debunking a lot of their stuff, because their researchers got tons of stuff just wrong. And so anyways, he had Schratt on there for one point, and Schratt was saying that he believed Lazar, and because of the folders and stuff. So Lazar, Schratt really redeemed himself in my eyes by coming forward with this paper and doing the research that he did to put together. And he suffered greatly for it, because a lot of people, like as Tyler said in Security and 10's video there, half the people are divided on this. They don't know what to believe. Well, I'm not trying to tell anyone what to believe, but let's just look at the details and see if it makes sense.
Yes.
The physics of it, we were discussing before, me and Ken, about this is where Area 51 is located. It's in the middle of pretty much nowhere. It's in a dry lake bed, which is really flat, and a good place to build a 9-mile long airway test strip. This is the location where S-4 approximately was located, hidden in these mountains down here, and there are some paths going down to those locations and on the mountainside. And You'll also notice that it's right near the Yucca Flats, which is the atomic testing site where over, I don't even know how many, innumerable craters here from nuclear tests. These are all highly radioactive craters from atomic tests that were done since the 1940s at this site. So yeah, you have quite a bit of radiation there, and even enough that makes some of the winds, when the winds are right, they have you can't even be outside of the base at Area 51 because there's radioactive dust in the wind. So they kind of they have real bad issues with that there already, and this is even closer, proximity closer. But as me and Ken were discussing, you said that radiation might work to their advantage if they're using it as a cover for something else, or maybe have some sort of shielding, right? Ken, are you still with us? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's weird how we got cut off right in the middle of that. Anyways, we're back now trying to do our live response to Secure Team 10's video on Bob Lazar. And I left off on the radioactivity around the geographical area surrounding Area 51, or where S-4 would have been located, according to Bob Lazar's testimony, southwest of Area 51, which is closer to the Nevada test range. And you had proposed the idea before that the radiation might work to their advantage if it were to be a cover for something else, their experiments there. And I also had questions about what type of shielding they might need there if you don't.
So basically, in terms of our current understanding of radiation theory in physics, the sort of shielding could be as simple as just basically an electromagnetic field. The problem, however, is that radiation tends to have a lot more energy to it. So the kind of electromagnetic shield that you would have to put up around your facilities should easily itself be detectable. So unless you have another type of physics that maybe, Phoenix, what I work with, certainly speaks to, but normally physics does not. So there's a level where, you're going to have to come up with a new way of telling me about nuclear theory in order to tell me how you've created such a device that can either give false readings on radiation, or is really producing the radiation but shielding everybody on the inside of the facility. So, but I think the trick certainly can be done, but you're going to have a better understanding of nuclear physics than we have publicly available.
Right.
Put it that way.
Right, and so we're not ruling out that the idea that the government might have that. And so let's just get into real quick. I actually have my website. Bob Lazar is on there, and he's actually, I have him in the debunk bin because I found so many holes in his story, and I'd really, I have a central debunking thesis that he's lied about so much stuff that we've caught him on that it really looks like he was in it maybe to make the money, and there was some similarities in the drawings that he made with UFO culture at the time. Was this craft, which was based off of Billy Meyer's UFO photos and pictures, which was really I think the inspiration where they took this idea from. But the heavier elements, I'm not ruling out that. I actually have I had a bigger page on him with more stuff, and I don't know what happened to that, with more stuff on element 115. But I'll have to locate that. But anyways, we were talking about this whole idea of element 115.
Sorry about that.
Yep, and we're back with Ken again, and that is how you know you're on to the real X-Files, when your conversations get interrupted right on cue on those key times. It's like, hello.
They know better than we do what's about to be said. Okay, this is a problem.
Right. I don't know why they're so interested in Bob Lazar. He's kind of old news at this point. And the Russians spent quite a bit of money investigating with their particle accelerators all the different isotopes of element 115 to try to find a stable one. And I'm not sure I've ever heard anything that they ever did, but
Right.
could be wrong.
So right now I am going to our beautiful element 115 and looking at the isotopes that you were just talking about.
Right. Now, he also said that it jumps up a proton somehow spontaneously up to element 116 and then spontaneously decays back down, or that it somehow shares an extra proton in some sort of state where it gives up and continuously gives up and decays, and that process is what releases this.
Well, usually it would just be the kinetic energy of the proton or the kinetic energy of the neutrons. So here we go, right there. Okay, so UUP is the chemical element, proton number 115, and he was stating, which are the isotopes again?
According to this website, this is bismuth. This is sport model flying disc element 115. 184 neutrons. Try that
184. Nope, that misses the mark by a wide margin.
Oh,
if you're looking for any. Sorry.
176. 176.
76. Actually, somewhere in the order of 142 neutrons with 115 protons. So what we're looking for, the sort of telltale sign is stability in that nucleon system. So what we're looking for is a system that literally stores as much energy as it's possible, and that's the stability. Now, what we're also looking for right next to that stability is that it has the ability, if you add a single neutron, or if you take away a single neutron, or just a few, that somehow a lot of that stored energy is released. And so the magic of generally how nuclear fission works is exactly that. If the nucleus that you're dealing with is too unstable, which basically means it just does not like to have that many neutrons sitting with all those protons, and so it's just willing to shed it at its own convenience, then you really don't have a big nuclear reaction at all. You just have a highly radioactive nuclei. However, if somehow your nucleus, again, just loves to stick together, but all you need to do is to hit it with a single neutron or kick off somehow a single neutron, maybe using a proton or something else, but just kick it ever so slightly, and it can interact in a way that it breaks apart. And that breaking apart is releasing all of that pent-up energy, all that pent-up nuclear energy. And that's how you can get a nuclear chain reaction effectively. And so what we're looking for in element 115, what we're actually looking for is a very, 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 very stable nucleus that's on the verge. Okay, again, remove one proton, remove one neutron, add one proton, add one neutron. In that seemingly sensitive state, it can then give up a lot of kinetic energy. Okay, so as I'm looking at my chart here, what I see is that for
I wish you could do a screen share of that. Or you could turn your phone toward your screen if you want.
Well, this is sensitive.
It's sensitive information. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
That's all right. That's all right. I mean, that's
You can't give away
that's
your calculate. Your formulas are your work, man. I understand.
right.
It's like,
I'm not trying to make it easier on other countries, shall we say? But
yeah.
what I am trying to do is to say that Phoenix harbors that kind of an understanding that enables us to actually map out each isotope of each a number of protons that one might want to try out and investigate.
Just for those who
And
missed it, Phoenix and what Phoenix is.
Oh yeah,
Just,
yeah. So Phoenix is the physics of entanglement networks and information exchanges, and the physical theory assumes that all things in the universe are interrelated. Now, that kind of network philosophy of the universe can be translated using certain types of math, namely combinatorics, but can be translated directly into a way of understanding not just the nucleus, but a way of understanding elementary particles. That's the primary approach. And when you can decipher the elementary particles, what the hell is an electron? What the heck is a neutron? What the heck is a quark? What is this notion that the quarks, interact by a gluon? What the heck is that? Why is it that, three quarks together will possibly form a stable system, and yet you can't have a single quark floating around in the universe unless the temperature is way too high? What is it about this aspect called gravity? What the heck is gravity? Why is it in any way, shape, or form a part of the universe of matter? So all of these things, and also what the heck is antimatter? So a lot of the questions that are really reigning questions of physics now, we look at string theory and we're like, oh well, string theory should solve all of these questions. In fact, string theory doesn't solve half of the questions that I've just asked, especially the question that I didn't ask, but the question about why is the proton stable. So there's just so many things out there that Phoenix actually answers in a very succinct, very, how shall we say it, beautiful, easy way. And so one of the things that we can do with Phoenix is to utilize it to ask questions about how do you put protons and neutrons together? What the heck is that all about? Why is it in any way, shape, or form that elementary particles or pseudo-elementary particles like protons and neutrons should ever have any way of describing themselves together or not together? So all of those dynamics in physics has a separate field to it called nuclear theory. Whereas, when we're talking about quarks, we're talking about elementary particle theory, and there's a huge chasm between those two theories of physics. The chasm, in fact, is so huge that you're not going to find on your online resources any adequate way of jumping from elementary particles to nuclear physics. There's a lot of hand waving that you're just supposed to accept as a particle physicist or as a nuclear physicist. But generally, the language that you're using when you're doing nuclear theory is a very different language than you're using when you're doing elementary particles. And physicists today, especially the elementary particle people, very quickly and simply believe that everything in the universe should be described firstly from fundamental particles. That's where string theory is kind of born. And so, we're having a problem, shall we say, in creating nuclear physics from elementary particle physics. There's a huge chasm. Whereas Phoenix resolves that. So the very simplistic language that it uses can also give you very easily why neutrons and protons even give a rat's whatever about each other. And in their caring about each other, why is it that a certain number like to stay together and a certain number like to fall apart? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we can map out all of the isotopes, as well as mapping out, of course, all of the the possibility of, how many protons will form some kind of a nucleus, and sort of map out the whole isotopic spectrum of nuclear theory. So in our isotopic spectrum, what we find is that Bob Lazar is slightly off the mark, close, but that nuclear element 115 is effectively one proton off. But the problem is not just that it's one proton off, it's also from being a very stable nucleus, but it's also that he doesn't, as you're saying, present the number of neutrons. He doesn't actually tell us what the isotope, i.e. the number of neutrons and the number of protons, is. That's the hallmark of a nucleus. So as I rattled out all of that stuff off. So yes, he's very close, meaning that, yeah, we can start with 115 and see if there's anything there, but the answer is not 115. If we're going to find that point of stability, this theory predicts that it's 114. And then you can go in there and find the right isotope in the 114. So we have, again, he's close. I don't know, how one can come that close without actually having physical data or having such a theory as I do, to generate that kind of data. You can't just, cough that one up. So, I'm intrigued that he's so close. That's my point. But
it could have also been because he just picked a really high element that wouldn't be discovered for, I think element 112 was the highest that had been discovered at that time. And he just sort of threw out a high number there. So just as a guess,
Right. To give him cover.
That's kind of what my whole synopsis was on his story. But then again, there could be more to it. But again, we really would have to get Bob on here and drill him and drill his brain as a physicist on a lot of these questions that are unanswered, and really get his perspective and side of the story on it. And because as we'll link back to this video and kind of close it out, as Secure Team 10 was saying, they tried to erase this man. That's the title of his video. They tried to erase this man. And, Bob Lazar pretty much erased himself after those interviews, and Stanton Friedman came out and wrote a scathing review on him, where Stanton Friedman basically called him a fraud. He's one of the most respected and top researchers in ufology. Let me find that for people. Stanton Friedman. One can Google Stanton Friedman on Bob Lazar. There's a little 4-minute video where he just basically goes over a lot of the stuff I already went over already. You can also look up Michael Schratt's paper on Bob Lazar. And as far as we're concerned, the physics that Bob Lazar weren't conclusive and weren't complete enough to show us that he had a firm understanding of this anti-gravity craft, or that his information is legit or usable from a physics standpoint for reverse engineering purposes, based on what he gave us. It's not like we could just say, oh, element 115, that's the key. Let's make it into a triangle and slap it together and it's going to work. We need more than that.
You need a lot.
A lot more. We need a lot.
Look, the number of isotopes of element 115 we have at approximately, I say this simply, 570. There's so many. Each one of those isotopes requires, give me 1 second. Each one of those isotopes requires a huge amount of resources to just generate any one of them, and then to start testing them, right? So let's just say it's $1 billion an isotope. Who's going to cough up, short of our federal government, $500 million and give it to one guy to somehow magically find all of these, to figure out which isotope of 115 it is? So I'm just saying that there's a lot of
there's a lots of a stretch of the imagination from a real scientific standpoint. But Lazar, if you want to go up to my webpage, you can check out my debunk page on it. But if you want the scientific information, just take out Bob and do lazar.html, and that's got the page. So on my website, that way you can find this same information. And I'm going to be putting more stuff up on these pages too. I might transfer some of this stuff on my website just to make it more complete and add some more information, like a copy of that Lazar report. I want to host it on my page in case some of these other pages get hacked and get it taken down, because that is a real valuable resource. Just has a whole plethora of information, and Michael Schratt did an excellent job. And he credits my friend Dan also, who did a really good job on a lot of this research as well. So as far as the physicists are concerned, though, me and Ken, I'm glad you joined me. I wish we had Michael Schratt and Dan on as well. We kind of broke in the middle of the video to wait for them to come on and offer their opinions, but they were not available to do that tonight. I think Michael Schratt is pretty much firm in that he is retired from UFOs or any discussion of anyone involved with them after, it's just a bad taste in his mouth from whatever happened. And, and I don't blame him, because I also retired from this for a couple of years, and I'm now just coming back because, you know what, I'm really sick of the stuff I'm seeing out there, and it's getting so much popularity and so many views, and it's just not, people aren't smart anymore. They're just watching this for entertainment, and if you really want the truth, you come to my channel, and you really want in-depth analysis, you come to me, and I'm going to keep it going as long as people keep on helping me and supporting me. Patreon.com, I have a Patreon set up now, and hit the subscribe button and share this information, and stay on his comment section, and just make sure people are watching this video and people see it. And anyone talking about it anywhere else that you see, or posting videos on Bob Lazar, just say, hey, go check out what this guy has to say, because he's done about 10 years worth of research, and I know you're just getting into this now, but I've been into this quite a while. So, in any case, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more future videos with us.